What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher. We've got another 3-game playoff slate on tap, and it's been surprisingly busy for injury situations during the course of the playoffs so far. Yesterday, we had the Nick Nurse hokey pokey that we were questionable of during the show. Turns out those doubtfuls were more like questionable tags. But clearly, Gary Trent Jr. and Thad Young were limited. Like they were not able to play their normal roles. Today, the Miami Heat are just spamming us with questionable tags. Bam Adebayo, Dwayne
Adebayo,
Haywood Highsmith, Markieff Morris, PJ Tucker. Like, Mike, what is going on? This looks like a regular season injury report. How are you?
Good, man. Great, actually. Shout out to the wrong one, Mr. Marcus Smart. Won the Kia Defensive Player of the Year. I won a Kia yesterday.
Yeah.
Because of him on top of my big bet. I've got some other smaller ones too. So really nice come up for me. And people who tailed. Shout out to you guys too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly BS. Bam said he's playing. Taurean Prince said he's playing. I mean, the fact that they're putting Haywood Highsmith on the injury report. I wish Bam was here. I mean, come on. Like, what are we doing here? So I feel pretty confident that everyone's going to be available. Tucker's listed with the same injury. He was fine. You know, he played, I think it was 13 first half minutes. No issues. Spo was asked about it after the game. He said both him and Bam came out fine. Yeah, so could pretty much just ignore the injury report. Bogdan probable tag. That's pretty common practice for the – actually, it's even better than common practice because they usually would Q tag him again. But he gets a probable tag, so he should be good to go. Yeah, pretty light on the injury stuff today.
All right, well, that's the show.
All right,
we'll talk a little bit more in depth. I will note that we're scheduled to continue to do these injury report analysis shows throughout the course of this week. We are monitoring viewership though and engagement, and if it's just down substantially, if people aren't participating, then we're not going to invest the time in things. So I don't mean that as a threat or anything, but just as a heads up. Like, we're good for the rest of this week. We'll see where we go the following week and beyond. I'm also
share it to tell a friend. Steal a Josh Norris line. Tell all your friends to listen. Let's give out some bets. We'll give out some more bets, man.
We can't give out.
I'm on Miami.
Freebies.
I'm on Miami -7
behind the paywall, but
I'm on Miami -7 now. If anyone wants to take that,
and I'll also be moving in the next 2 weeks, so there will be some interruption in my own service as well. But yeah, let's talk through. Let's kind of go, game by game. We'll start with Atlanta. You mentioned Bogdanović probable, Clint Capella out. The big news from game one was John Collins' return and how it sort of impacted things for Atlanta. They played very, very poorly. Their rotation got thrown out of sync early with Kevin Huerter fouls. It was just kind of a mess from the get-go. But I wanted to get your thoughts on Clint Capella's minutes, John Collins' minutes going forward in the absence of Clint Capella. We saw they were pretty much pure backup center minutes. Do you expect that to be the case, or do you think they can grow more minutes and play the 4 a little bit as well?
So Collins, after the game, Nick Millen said he came out better than he thought, honestly, which was, not unusual. Usually it's normal. So that's an indication that he could play a little bit more, and they certainly could use the size. So we'll see what they do with that against Miami. So I expect his minutes to come up a little bit. Chance he starts. It's going to be tricky with how that affects the Congo. Maybe he starts at center. They definitely need the spacing with Gallinari. I don't feel great about really anything with the starting lineup. But yeah, no Capella. It changed their defense. They just had their half-court defense just fell apart.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a big factor. That's why I'm on Miami -7.
And we have Collins right now projected as just the backup center. We have Gallinari projected with a decent bit of minutes. He was on pace to play a ton again. Part of that impacted by Kevin Huerter's foul trouble early, certainly extending Gallinari. But Collins his presence could cut into Gallinari as well as Okongwu. So. Something to monitor, certainly, if he gets into the starting lineup and whatnot there. There's lots of interesting lineup combinations I'd like to see them do. I'd actually kind of like to see them, if they are able to start Collins, I'd kind of like to see it in place of Okongwu, honestly.
Yeah.
And run the John Collins at center stuff. But we'll see.
He's arguably a better matchup for Bam. Because we've seen Collins, agile centers, he's actually done a pretty good job in those spots. Or, Bam's almost like a power forward, right? We've seen Collins do a pretty good job on some of those guys.
And also would help the floor spacing for Atlanta, which they need all the help that they can get floor spacing rise right now, because Collins does bring a little bit more of a vertical threat than Okongwu does. And if you play them together, if you like start them together, the floor spacing gets really scrunched. And they're going to need all the help they can get. The other thing that I'm looking for in this series, and we'll talk about this more on the DFS show, is I'm looking to see if Atlanta starts playing Trey purely off ball more. Because one of the things, obviously, Trey is super ball dominant. It's great to have the ball in Trey's hands, but you can't double him when he's off the ball.
Yeah.
And you can double and trap when he's on the ball. So doing things where they get him into situations where he's getting passes off of screens instead of like kind of catching the ball on the move and being able to attack and make quick decisions and different things like that, instead of just getting trapped on pick and rolls and getting, pushed out deeper and deeper. I'm interested to see if Atlanta adjusts with stuff like that as well, which is something to pay attention to for those of you out there. If you're expecting stuff like that, we recommended on the live show on Sunday morning to single game parlay the Heat money line with Trey under 10.5 dimes. I think this is going to be a light Trey assist series just generally with the way that the coverages are going for Miami. And I think the adjustment that Atlanta has to make is actually going to be something that gets the ball out of his hands even more and makes him more of kind of like a Klay Thompson role as opposed to like a Jordan Poole role, if you're thinking of the Celtics or the Warriors and how they use kind of their shooters and their offensive players.
Yeah, I'll add, and this is uncharacteristic for Nate McMillan. He basically said he needs to give Trey some help with the way they were trapping him so hard with so much length too, right? Like or Jimmy Butler, they threw so many bodies at him, and that's part of the reason why we have a Kayvon, aka Red Velvet Herder, over here. I think.
Yeah, we took a Herder over prop that I feel really good about. I think the number's too light because of him picking up 2 quick fouls, but I also think he's the guy that's most likely to be able to help out Trey in this stuff. He's a pretty good secondary decision maker, and he's pretty like DeLon is the guy that ball handling. If you wanted to play Trey off ball, you could have DeLon do this stuff. But if you're gonna have Trey on ball, you can't have DeLon do this stuff because he's while I love DeLon, he's just not decisive. He's deliberate with when he gets the ball out of trap situations, and you need somebody who's decisive and willing to shoot, and that DeLon pauses too much. So I think Herder and Bogdanovic and Gallinari are all guys that should benefit, but it's going to be a tough series for Atlanta to score just generally. Like Miami's defense is very, very, very good. Okay. On the Miami side of things, I thought some things that were interesting from that first game in terms of the rotation stuff were basically that Duncan Robinson going nuclear kind of changed the landscape of all the things from a rotation perspective. We saw Max Strus play really long stints in the first and third quarters, nothing in the second quarter, and then came in for garbage time in the fourth quarter. People are just all in the chat just celebrating all your spread calls of late.
Yeah, I'm 8-0 since the play-in. I mean, just listen to 3-ball, you get free money. Like it's pretty simple.
It's pretty wild. Download, subscribe, rate, review, all those good things. We were nominated for Mike's work on the 3-ball, and the Established Run NBA podcast was nominated.
And you too. Don't be.
No, it's the 3-ball. Was nominated for the podcast of the year award, but did not win. But maybe next year.
Next year
we
got it.
Keep our eye on the prize. But the Heat, Tyler Hero's minutes got cut down. Strus's minutes kind of were weird, just the rotations, like really long first quarter rotations and nothing in the second quarter, and then only blowout in the fourth quarter. And I think that's all because of Duncan Robinson just going full flamethrower mode.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts and expectations around the Heat rotation? Because this is a team that's very, very deep, and they were willing to play Hero, Dedmon, Robinson, Vincent off the bench in a deep 9-man, not like a tight 8-man.
Yeah, Spoelstra kind of hinted he might change it, but it's just coach speak. So I think it should be pretty similar. But the question is Duncan just flamethrowing again? It's
probably going to be hot hand situation between Duncan, Strus, and Vincent, right? Like that's most likely the scenario. And Vincent's willing to flamethrow too. I mean, that dude is Vincent gives me such Fred VanVleet vibes, man.
Yeah, really does.
Like that dude, I think that dude's gonna get paid at some point. I really do. I think he's pretty decent.
Miami just freaking. What's the the Aaron Paul, like how did they keep letting him get away with
Yeah,
this stuff?
yeah, exactly.
That's like totally Miami.
Exactly.
Just keep getting dudes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be hot handy. We know Jimmy's meant to be safe. I think Tucker's going to play a little bit more today. Bam's stints were pretty good in the first game. Maybe a little bit more there. So yeah, it should be pretty similar. But again, Spoelstra, and that's another reason why I'm on Miami. Like, pick a bigger mismatch for coaches. I mean, Spoelstra. Well, actually, one that we'll get to in a second, I think is a pretty big mismatch. But I think Spoelstra is going to outmaneuver the hell out of Nate in this one.
I think that's true. Nate, to Nate's credit, he has fewer chess pieces right now. Like,
for sure.
No Capella, a banged up Collins. Like, it's kind of a mess with what Atlanta's dealing with right now. So, on to Memphis and Minnesota. On the Memphis side, Santi Aldama is questionable. Wouldn't expect him to be in the rotation regardless.
Yeah.
The thing with Memphis, this is a potential bounce back spot in a big way. The thing that I'm trying to figure out is how quickly they lean into the lineups that are their best lineups. We talked about this a lot on the DFS show yesterday, and I'm hesitant to like give away too much here on the free stuff.
Yeah, right.
But like yesterday, we basically shouted from the rooftops, the Dallas Mavericks only have one lineup that is competitive for them to win in the series. And it's Maxi Kleber at center, and it's Taurean Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie. It has two playmakers. It has spread floor. They can pick and roll and get into the lane and create threes that way. That's what they did last night. They hit all of them, which is why they won the game. I don't know if they'll continue to hit them at that rate, but they were generating wide open threes with that lineup. And they were able, because Utah refuses to get Rudy Gobert the ball, they were able to still defend pretty well. And I think the Grizzlies, even though they're a very, very deep team, it reminds me very similarly that the Grizzlies have one clear lineup that they need to get into. How much are they willing to get into it? And when you're talking about coaching mismatches, I assume this is one of the ones you're talking about. Do you think Taylor Jenkins will have the fortitude to get into the lineup that will help them compete the best, or do you think we'll still see the Grizzlies play their 10-man rotation?
Before I answer that, just look at the discrepancy of like Anthony Edwards 40 minutes, Cat 43, D'Lo wasn't playing well, and then the minutes just aren't the same. Even like Joe didn't have foul trouble, Brookston had a little bit of foul trouble, but like their best players, Bane didn't have foul trouble. And like he was asked about that after the game, saying like, "Do you want to tighten?" Because they ran 10-man as they always do, and he said that he was maybe rewarding guys that earned minutes during the season, and he wanted to see how they would fare in the playoffs. Yeah. So that leads me to believe that someone's getting cut. Because Zaire Williams just doesn't.
Zaire's the first name that would come.
Yeah, Zaire's like for sure going bye. You would think, right? Then you're looking at Melton and Tyus Jones. The Wolves are so fast that like Tyus's little crafty stuff, I just don't think it matters enough. So I think Tyus, as much as I love him, I think his minutes are going to be coming down. I think there's no chance he gets overlapped with John Morant. Melton, he makes a lot of sense, right? He's floor spacing guy, on ball defense. It makes sense for him to play, but I just think they're going to really try to play Bane, Morant, and Brooks a little bit more. Obviously, Jaren has to avoid foul trouble. Steven Adams is just getting cooked out there. We talked a lot about the geometry of their screening and how their offense works, but it's affecting their defense, and not being able to send two guys who can move around quickly to double cat and move and rotate. That's how you defend the Wolves. Everyone knows that, especially Ty Lue, right? But so I would expect this rotation to be condensed. Sorry for the long-winded answer there.
You noted no chance at Tyus and Ja overlapping. They did overlap in game one.
Yep.
So they've shown a willingness to do that stuff. I'm interested to see if they continue to or not. But I think that's the big thing to focus on here. For Minnesota side, Taurean Prince is questionable, but he said he's going to play. He said he's not questionable, that he's available and he's going to play. So I don't think there's really much to cover on the Minnesota side. I think it's going to be the same stuff. Well, Finch knows he has to play tighter, which I think was a great sign. We didn't really get to see it in the play-in because of all the foul trouble, right? We didn't get to see how tight he would have played. So it was nice to see that he was willing to play tight. I still think the rest of the stuff is going to be game flow oriented and matchups. We saw McDaniels play more than Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt plays a little bit more if Jaren Jackson isn't in foul trouble. You saw Beasley play, like his minutes go way up. Beverly was in a little bit of foul trouble. Like I think those things are going to kind of, come and go. Sean George asking if Prince has minutes upside. I mean, he has upside beyond 12, but I don't think he has like mid 20s. I don't think Taurean Prince is playing mid 20s in this series,
unless someone's in foul trouble or something.
Yeah.
He's just so far. I mean, he's a nice compliment. And the problem is like Beasley is really important in this series. Vanderbilt,
Prince is their least important role player in this series by a wide margin.
And I would have said in other matchups, like against the Clippers or other matchups, like it was more important for him to play. So with them winning that game without Prince, I thought that was kind of a big deal. But so this isn't like a great Prince, but again, things could go this way. So there's upside. It's just you need a lot of things to go right.
Yeah. All right. New Orleans and Phoenix, they don't really have anybody on the injury report, so I don't think there's too much to talk about here. We know you love Trey Murphy. We know we're going to be talking a lot more about Trey Murphy later. But I think we can save most of that stuff for the DFS show because honestly, like there's nothing injury related here. So I think
Brandon Ingram's been good. He's been playing a bunch. It's not injury related. All the Suns guys are pretty healthy now. Campaign has no issues. So these teams are pretty much good to go. Yeah.
So I think that's a good stopping point for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Established Runs NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. It will be Mike Gallagher and Gary Hartman. I will be taking the afternoon off as I need to go tuxedo shopping.
Yeah.
I'm invited to a wedding in Scotland at some sort of castle. And
smelling the roses, baby.
I'm not fancy enough to go, so I need to enhance my fancy.
I love it. When you said May?
Yeah, I think second weekend in May.
Let's go. So I booked a week and a half in Maui in September, so I'm ready for some roses smelling.
That's gonna be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
more to come.
We'll take you home tomorrow. We have the DFS show tonight with myself and Mike Gallagher at 5:30 Eastern. That's 2 hours before lock, as usual. We have weekly packages, monthly packages. If you are interested in joining us during the course of the playoffs, I think we've really been on point in breaking down stuff from the DFS side, whether it's noting Maxi Kleber or Brandon Clark, kind of finding those breakout cheap players to take advantage of, whether it's telling you to fade olds that that don't usually produce ceilings and do produce ceilings, which is what happened to me last night. Royce O'Neal, my God. We will recap this on the DFS show later, but I made a dreadful and costly $100,000 mistake on Royce O'Neal last night that we'll talk about more on the DFS show. But join us there at 5:30 Eastern. We'll break through these 3 games and the DFS slate from a strategy perspective as well. If you are not subscribed to join us behind the paywall, at least subscribe to the channel here. Continue to help us grow this channel and encourage us to deliver the free content that you guys all seem to enjoy. And remember to hit, press, or smash that like button so we can continue to circulate this free content and we can keep doing these shows. We'll keep doing the shows as long as the people keep showing up. You show up, we'll provide the content. That's kind of the deal here. So give us those sweet, sweet clicks. We'll see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern. Enjoy the games tonight. Take care, everybody.